going on, everybody? Welcome back to the spin-off, another episode, of course. Today, everybody, I got with me comedian, TV personality. You may have seen him on, World's Dumbest on TruTV. I don't know. You may have seen him in his stand-up. I'd sure as hell hope so. I'd like to welcome Kevin McCaffrey. Kevin, how you doing today, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on.
Like I said, man, this was a no-brainer. I came across your profile. I said, oh, shit, please tell me it's him. Especially when you messaged back, I was like, oh, all right, now please agree to do the show.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying off air before, there are other Kevin McCaffreys out there. There's a decent amount. Some of them have friended me, and I mean, some of them might even be easier to book. You know, who knows? But yeah, I'm glad you were able to track down the one you meant to. If I am that, so.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it was a no-brainer. I've watched you on World's Dumbest. That's how I was actually introduced to you. You started that show back in 2008. You're still doing it to this day, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, the show is still on in reruns.
Yeah.
We haven't done a new episode of that since 2014, I think. But
okay.
I know it's weird, but they still most Tuesdays they are filling it up with a lot of World's Dumbest stuff. I definitely did 200 episodes of that, and that was the first. That was the first regular TV thing I was doing. I think I was 25 when I started that. So it started as a show that was internet videos, that were, and the commentators were a lot of D-list celebrity types, some C-list, I would say. There's, but
you had Tanya Harding on there.
Some felons also, Stallone? Sure. Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone's brother was on there.
Frank Stallone, yes.
That's right.
Yeah. And then, Frank Stallone, Todd Bridges, Leif Garrett, so it was all those types. And then they wanted to at some point, they decided they should have some people on who, attempted to be funny and occasionally succeeded. So they had so I think myself and a comedian named Mike Trainer were the first two that who's a good friend of mine he works at Howard Stern now. And
Mike's awesome.
Mike's great. Yeah. And so he and I were kind of, I think, and Chelsea Peretti actually were three of the first comedians they brought on to do stuff there.
So doing a show like that, then basically just getting to sit around and watch internet videos and just make wise ass cracks. Just is this shit coming off the top of your head as you're watching these clips, or do you get the time to sit back and write a joke?
They would definitely send you the at first. I mean, this is long ago, so they were long ago enough, so they were sending you hard copy DVDs the night before first of the stuff, but then they started sending links, and you would get time to go through them and write lines and stuff. And I think that's, for both Mike and I, certainly that was something that the producers were almost too impressed with early, was that we actually did write jokes to bring in a couple sheets, sit them on a stool, and
they were prepared to class.
Yeah. And it's we certainly prepared hard and we took it seriously, and we're happy to have the opportunity, but also it's still to this day the easiest job I've ever had of any kind. I mean, it is just watching. It's basically like what you say when you watch Cops with your friends. You just write it down, is the only difference. So yeah, it was, you'd watch it through, write down whatever you were thinking as you went, and then you go in and say it. And that was really mostly it,
And see, I remember World's Dumbest when it started. You guys were kind of pioneers in a sense of putting commentating and a funny spin on these horribly failed criminal attempts, viral videos, if you will, before viral video was a thing. Right. You guys pioneered this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, because after that,
we got ridiculous now.
Sure. Oh man, MTV. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen
the image. That's the golden child right there.
Yeah. But then Tosh.0 sort of was like, what if we only had a comedian doing this? And it was like, yeah, how did no one think of that before? I'm sure, Tanya's thoughts are nearly irreplaceable, but the Tosh angle seemed to take it to the next level. Yeah, it was great, and it's so simple and such an easy show to produce, So yeah, I was very lucky to get that. It was as easy, if not easier, than it looked. And it's also a thing where even to today, when people come out to see me do stand up, when they come out on purpose to see me, it is usually, I mean, that's the most common reason why, is because they know me from that. And it's
Yeah.
from my stand up. I think a lot of comics, you know, you might be proudest of different things than the audience recognizes. Like for me, doing Letterman was like, that's the varsity letter, you know, like that's getting a varsity letter in comedy, that's whatever. But no one comes out to see me because I did Letterman. You know, it's like it's a fun fact. I think for when people, if they hear the MC being like, he was on Letterman, they're like, oh, okay, that, you know, that means something. That's real. But I still, like, when most people come out to see me, and now it's either from podcast stuff or it's from World's Dumbest, and that's great. It's been very nice.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Letterman, because not only did you kind of make your TV debut on Letterman, but you also ended up being a writer for The Late Show.
Yeah, I was a monologue writer. So I freelance wrote monologue jokes for the show for years, and that was really great. And we did that. I think there was like 10 freelancers doing monologue for most of the time that I was aware. And we, you know, you would just basically wake up, you would write monologue based on the news until about noon, and you would email it in, and that was it. And the guy who ran the monologue at that time was a very funny writer named Steve Young, who also wrote for The Simpsons as well, in addition to Letterman back in the day. And he's also like now the sort of subject of an incredible documentary movie called Bathtubs Over Broadway, I think is what it's called. But it's but it like won a bunch of festival stuff, and Steve's at the center of it. Basically, he collected industrial musical records, and it's actually a really good movie. But this is the guy who we would like send jokes to, and then he would pick his favorites or the ones he thought would work for the show the best, and then every morning he would take that collection of things into Dave to pitch. So so that was another very, very nice thing to be able to get to do.
So did you ever get kind of that little sense of pride when you got to hear one of yours being picked and read by Letterman? The very first time, was that kind of like, holy shit, he picked mine?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it was a very, you know, big time bucket list stuff, right? Where it's like, when I grew up, I was a real Dave freak as a kid. And like Dave and Conan were my guys. And so I got to intern at The Late Show, and I was the writer's intern, was like my last college credit. And during that time, I ended up, through a weird series of events, getting to sort of write under the table for the top 10 list. And that is really the most memorable thing, was like getting the first top 10s I got on the show, and seeing those happen was surreal, you know? And then after that worked out, they had me write for the top 10 the rest of the internship. And then I got hired to write monologue stuff freelance after that. And yeah, I mean, like it's weird because I think Dave's the funniest person who's basically existed. But it is weird that writing these jokes, it would be like half the page was stuff that I thought was funny, and then the other half was stuff that I thought might get on the show, and they were often mutually exclusive. So it was extra nice if like a joke got on the show that you also felt was funny, you know? But with any writing job like that, the job isn't really to write the funniest stuff. It's to write the stuff that works for the show, whatever that means, you know? So yeah, whenever Dave would do a joke, obviously it's a very big deal.
And you've also been credited with writing for shows that have been on MTV, VH1. You've wrote for Cash Cab, and I mean, there's more. So what have you done for these other shows, especially MTV and Cash Cab? What a great show that is, by the way.
Oh yeah, everyone. I mean, when people hear Cash Cab, they get, you know, as or more excited than they often do about like the comedy stuff, you know. And it's weird because Cash Cab it's a show hosted by a stand-up comic. Ben Bailey's a stand-up comic, but and the writing staff when I was there was also almost all comedy writers as well. But we weren't writing comedy; it was literally just writing the trivia questions. So it was a staff of comedy people, but writing trivia. And it's just a show I think people have very warm feelings about, and you can win daytime Emmys, right? They won the daytime Emmy a number of times.
Who the hell would have guessed that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of like, my friend group has a lot of sneaky Emmy winners. It's like, yeah, they're daytime, but it's still, it's still a statue. Do they make you pay for the statue when you win? They do. You have to purchase the Emmy you won if you want to keep it. So that's a little silly, but
the hoax of Hollywood. Sweet Jesus. I mean, when you really pull back the curtain, it's worse than the Land of Oz. It's ridiculous. Sure. My God. So what was it that you worked on at MTV and VH1 then?
VH1, I wrote for a show called Celebrity Eye Candy. Then I was on air for I Love the 2000s, that series. So just like I love the blank, so I did all the years in the decade of the 2000s. Did on air stuff for that. And then MTV, a number of things. I was head writer of a show called Binge Thinking, which was hosted by a guy who's a rapper and has a huge YouTube following named Mac Lethal. And he's and Mac's great, but we did 2 seasons of basically, it was like a comedy game show that you would play on the streets. Every episode was a different city, and you would just play games in the street with drunks.
Oh, wow.
So it was a mess to film, but it was but that was nice. I was head writer on that show, and then also for a show that was a technology-based prank show called Bugging Out, which I hated the title. That
sounds familiar.
It existed. It definitely existed. And the co-host was a woman named Tracy Stumpf, who's funny, and she's great. And a lot of the producers on that show were great too. The show itself, it was a technology-based prank show, and when I interviewed for it, someone recommended me for it, and I told them, like, just so y'all know, I hate pranks. I don't think pranks are funny. And they were like, not a problem. And then I ended up working for that. So it was, just a few months, but yeah, just various little writing gigs here and there and in between and on top of stand-up, I guess.
With you saying you're not a big fan of pranks,
no,
what would have been your ultimate reaction if, say, a Punk'd or something like that would have got you on there?
I'm a terrible mark for stuff like that, because I just no sell it. Like, shit. It doesn't make me laugh. And then also I'm not going to like fight them about it. So they did on World's Dumbest once. I think there was like a World's Dumbest Pranks they did as a one-off or something, and you would go in and they'd have you like, you sign your little waiver contract, whatever, when you go in. And so I was signing off on it, and they had the cameras rolling, and I was on, and it was like a buzzer pen, like it would give you a small shock.
Yes.
And so I just like
things.
Yeah. So I just like, I winced, and I just looked up, and the producer was smiling, and I was like, do you want this back?
What is this shit?
Yeah, and they were like, yeah, but it's completely unusable footage. Like, it's not good. So I'm just not good for pranking, because it's not good television in any way. And I mean, I remember, like, I'm friends with some of the Impractical Jokers guys, and God bless them.
God.
And that I actually do appreciate, that like on that show they're the butt of their own pranks.
Yes, yeah, they do it to themselves.
Yeah, it's not ruining other people's days, but
no, and they'll go above and beyond to prank each other.
Yeah, and I respect that, and they're huge.
The dedication's major. Yeah.
So I was going to a friend's wedding in Portland, Oregon, and my wife and I were we were walking up to lunch at this place, and I saw the Impractical Jokers walking around the corner into the same restaurant, and I was like, we can't go there, I'll tell you in a minute. But, like, it's like, A, I would suck, I'm terrible at taking a prank. B, if the Impractical Jokers aren't on TruTV, I am, so I would ruin the take anyway. Yeah. It's like, regardless, there's 3 other TruTV shows that I'm constantly on, so it's like, we bailed on that.
All right. You brought this up a little bit earlier. I
Hmm.
was going to bring this up, so you did it for me. You do a podcast. Now,
Hmm.
this is interesting because, man, this is hilarious. The show isn't for me, so I'll probably never watch it. But you guys
Hmm.
got a podcast called Sex in the City.
We sure do.
Okay, this is two straight married guys that have
Uh-huh.
a podcast that's you and writer John Daly,
Hmm.
and you're watching the show for the first time doing a podcast about it.
Oh
How the
yeah,
hell did that happen?
well, we had time, and we had time. We'd never seen it before, and it's a show that obviously it's a huge show historically in like TV history. It's a massive thing, and we were just like we had both sort of considered watching it, and we'd seen, I guess, like we'd seen it when it had been on E, so we'd seen some episodes here and there, like out of order, whatever.
Yep.
So we had a vague awareness of it.
Not to mention edited too.
Oh, heavily edited. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You don't get any of the nasty stuff. So we were like, and we just had. Like I said, we had time. I had podcast equipment. I had done a podcast called College Stories for a while, and we had sort of stopped doing that. And John is a friend of mine from like basically for the last 20 years. He's been my best friend. We met in college, and we just decided to to if we were going to watch it anyway, let's record about it. And then we did, and over those 2 years a lot changed in our lives. John had 2 kids when we started. He had none. Now he's got 2. I'm the godfather to the first.
Wow.
And we just finished the getting through the whole thing in the movies. But it's also like it is a nice, the fans we've gotten out of it are like a really nice community of probably 85% women who have been interested to hear like 2 guy friends take on the show 20 years later. So and we didn't know the show was going to be coming back when we started this, so that works out nicely for us that there's going to be like an HBO Max series. But yeah, and we've started having guests on. We just released an episode today as we record this that my friend Jared Freed, who's a stand-up comic as well, does a lot of he has a big podcast called the J Train Podcast, and we had him on as a guest. So yeah, we've started. And actually, Sex and the City wise, there's an angle in one of the episodes where a guy is just packing too much heat. Mr. Too Big. His dick's too big. And that guy was on World's Dumbest with me. So he's a friend of mine, John Enos.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, he was Mr. Too Big on Sex and the City. So
oh my God.
So we're gonna try to talk to him for an episode too. But it's been a lot of fun, and the fan base we have from it has been so nice that like we're like, all right, let's watch another ladies show then. So we have the Bridgerton Bros now. So we spun off and we're doing Bridgerton now. Just dudes watching lady stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like you said, probably 85% of your audience may be women.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys, you're not just watching the show. You're obviously taking them on a journey through your guys' life over the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
Like you said,
Yes.
John didn't have kids when you started this. Now he's got 2. I mean, you're taking these listeners, your audience, on not just a journey of watching the show for the first time, but a journey through you guys' lives as they change over the years.
Brian, that's a great way to put it. That is a perfect pitch for what we're doing. Yeah, and I mean,
Hey,
you're
more welcome to use it if you need to.
Hey, we'll
go
use
right
it
ahead.
in the press. Yeah, no problem.
All right, we'll switch gears a little bit. We talked about your stand-up comedy. I mean, that's obviously your passion. That's what you've been put on this earth for. Man, you are fucking hilarious. Absolutely funny. I mean,
Well,
and
thanks, man.
you doing clean stuff on World's Dumbest caught my eye, and normally clean material doesn't usually catch me.
Sure. Yeah, right. And it's one of those things where I think the way I speak and just the way I sound, I think people tend to even think I'm cleaner than I am. You know what I mean?
Like a John Mulaney type almost.
Yeah, if I say fuck, it sounds still kind of proper. You know what I mean? Like it's just so I think that's an element too. And also when you're just in the looking at the other people on World's Dumbest, yeah, I don't need to do the bluest stuff. They've got that covered. You know, Bonaducci's naked and bleeding for some reason all the time. So, I think I would come with more jokes, I guess, or like actual like bits with a thoughtful angle, perhaps. But yeah.
And when I started following you on Facebook, I saw a bit that you posted. I think it was from like 2017 or 18. You did a bit where you just fucking went off about Ellen DeGeneres. Dude, guys, you've got to go watch this clip. It's some of the funniest shit you'll ever hear. But man, what made you just say, fuck this? I'm going off on this.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a thing that I'd certainly talked about. And that's a bit I didn't even do that many times. And not but during the pandemic when we couldn't be performing, I was going through old bits that I had on tape and that I could put up, and just ones that are like short enough to put on TikTok, basically, because most of my stuff is a couple minutes long. I do a lot of story stuff, so I don't have a ton that's short enough for online consumption in that way. But that was one where it's like, oh yeah, this is something. And it had been, I guess it had been more common knowledge recently that Ellen is mean, which there's elements of this where I definitely believe Ellen gets a different level of shit because she's a woman and etc. I do think there's something to that, because obviously, like, Dave was a curmudgeon. Dave had a hard edge to him too. But the difference is Ellen's whole brand was I'm the nice one. So she's a fucking liar is the thing. Like, so it's like, not only are you an asshole, but you're a liar. You're a fraud from the beginning. And it's too bad because she was a great comedian. She is still, I mean, she's still funny. It's sort of like in a different way when people are like, when people talk about how Louis C.K.'s, he's not funny after his stuff. It's funny. Like, he's still, the problem is, he's still funny. The shit still existed when it existed. Shoot Up and Hilarious are still two all-timers. Now, you can say a lot of other true bad shit about him too, but
old Bill Cosby stuff is still funny.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Like, I can't watch it anymore, but it was good when I watched it.
Yes.
And so I think I was annoyed with the idea that Ellen's whole brand, it was not even that she's mean, which is just also been an open secret among people in television for a long time.
Yep.
Like, I have friends who've written for her and whatever, and this is
I've heard about it too. And when you brought it up, I was like, holy shit, okay, there's got to be a little bit of validity here.
Yeah, and I think I had a couple comedians mention that too, where it's just like like a friend of mine named Christy Cielo, who's a very funny comic. She was on that night show, and she's like, it's so funny to see Kevin just like ripping into Ellen when my rep is that of like one of the nicer comedians, I guess. Like myself and Josh Gondelman and like are a couple people I think in New York who people are like, oh, this is just a relatively nice person, and Christy was like, and you're just tearing into Ellen. And it's like, but I don't even think of that about it as tearing into. I think her show, the brand was, it as I say in the bit, it's Make-A-Wish for healthy, wealthy white kids. Like, they just give gifts to kids who don't need it and are like celebrating themselves. So I'm not a huge fan, I guess. But much respect. She's a comedy great, like she's a Hall of Famer, but
it's needless to say, you guys, you're not going to be exchanging Christmas cards at the end of the year.
No, and it's like, I'm not,
but you're not striving for that either, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
All right, man. And now we're still talking about your comedy. Everything's kind of getting back to some normalcy. You guys are. Everybody's getting back out there. From what I've heard in the Florida scene, it is fucking crazy to try and find work right now because everybody's so booked up. But yet I looked at your schedule. My God, man, you are booked all the way to November 20th.
I at least am booked November 20th.
You are booked. As of right now, you are booked.
I am booked. I think I'm in Florida that weekend.
Yep.
And then I don't have a ton of like full weekends scheduled right now. As you say, it's sort of like things are opening up at different speeds. And then I just wasn't booking stuff until things were open and I was vaxxed and stuff. So I didn't get started on that. And usually for headliners, you're booked somewhere, but depending on the club, between 4 months and 12 months out, depending on the place. So, there's a little lag time to it. So I think I'm in like Pennsylvania for weekend in June. I know I have a Chicago in October, Florida in November, and then, stuff will fill in between. But
we're gonna have to fill you in Nebraska. I didn't see any Nebraska dates on there. Come on, Kevin.
Where in Nebraska are you?
I'm only about 20 minutes away from Omaha, and there's a funny bone right there in Omaha.
You know, I've never done the Omaha Funny Bone. I did a club in Lincoln.
There you go.
I did. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was
probably
called
not.
Yeah, yeah, but it was called the Comedy Lodge, I think. And I did that, and that was perfectly nice. But yeah, man, I would love to. I would love to do the Omaha Funny Bone.
Hell yeah, because I saw you're going to be in Illinois for a few shows. So yeah, if you've got anything you can fill in between there, heading west, shit, man, stop into Omaha or Lincoln, and we'll fill it up. I guarantee.
I would love to. Would love to.
Man, it'd be amazing. All right, so. I know you only said you had about a half hour to spare. We're coming up to that point. So this is going to be one of the shorter episodes I've done, but I don't mind because it's you. I don't give a shit.
I probably have a good 8 more minutes before I have to hop the next thing. If you have anything else, I'm not trying to cut you off short.
No, actually looking at it, you gave me more than I probably could have fucking asked for, man.
Well, thanks.
You really did.
You know, we're trying to bring it. We're trying to pack it in efficiently here.
It just
are you a comic as well? Do you do?
I am not. I'll tell you what. I tried one time. I tried one open mic at Omaha's Funny Bone when I was 21 years old. Never will fucking do that again.
See, well, but that's when people ask me after a show. There's plenty of people who will come up to you.
You never realize how much really goes into it.
Sure, yeah, and like, especially if you want to do it like professionally and stuff, it just takes forever, and but when people ask me like, oh, I think I want to do stand-up, what should I do? I always say you absolutely should do it once, like cross that off. And then if you don't have to keep doing it, don't. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. You know, I mean, it's been nice. I guess I've enjoyed myself, but like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it in general. If I'm like, you know, I'm giving it a maybe 2-star Yelp if we're talking like career-wise overall. So yeah, but that's great. Getting up once, boom, you did it.
Yeah, I discussed with the first comedian I had on my show, JJ Whitehead, just what it takes to get up there and do what you guys do is sheer madness. It takes a special kind of person, and that was his exact word. He emphasized special because, man, you guys dealing with hecklers, shit like that, it shows that just aren't going right, but then it's all got to feel that much better when you have that just unbelievable show where everything's hitting and the funny bone is just being tickled from the time you stepped on stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's obviously the best when it goes the best. And then if you're lucky enough to do it for long enough time, when it's going awful, that can also be enjoyable in a certain way too. Like, I definitely, in my first week, 2 weeks back, I did a week in Oklahoma City and a week in Tulsa, I think in April, and they're mostly great shows. But there's one show that was it was everyone's fucking birthday, and the crowd, everyone was drunk, everyone wanted to be talked to, no one wanted to hear material, they just wanted to be talked to. And I told them if they were at every one of my shows, I would kill myself, and they loved it. They bought all my albums, they bought everything I had, and it was a nightmare show, but they loved it. So it's
profitable. It was good.
Yeah, it's fine for me. I'm like, fuck it, whatever. Like, you guys bought the albums for whatever, and I'll hopefully never see you again. So this works out perfect for both of us, So yeah, both the good and the bad can be good at some point, I guess. But.
All right, Kevin, this has been amazing, man. I can't thank you enough. I'm going to wind it down. This is where I turn it over to my guest. I want you to let everybody know where they can find you on any social media, any other dates coming up that we may not have discussed. And then finally, any charities that you may be a part of or organizations or that you donate to, feel free to plug those as well.
Man, that's a really nice thing that more places should do that.
I think it's important.
Yeah, you can find me social media wise at Kevin McCaff everywhere. Basically, that's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It's all at Kevin McCaff. It's youtube.com/Kevin McCaffrey. There's stuff up there, so whatever, you can find all that. And then the podcasts I do, Sex and the Cityots and the Bridgerton Bros, you can check those out. And as far as charities go, where my money goes, it's gone a lot to Planned Parenthood. It's gone a lot to local Planned Parenthoods. It's gone a lot to We've gone to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Those are a couple of my favorites, so I'll throw those out there as good ones to go to. Planned Parenthood and SPLC.
Absolutely. And I'll put up the pictures to help promote those as well. So as I'm saying this, I'm sure you guys are seeing the pictures for those. So that'll be great once I edit that in. Well, this is going to be the end of the show here. And I'm going to start breaking this down. I'm starting a damn website this weekend. I am throwing all my shit on there from now on.
Get it.
So for now, you guys know the deal. My name on Facebook, on YouTube, Brian Knutson, or the spinoff on Twitter at Knutson_Brian. The audio will be at the Scarlet Cream Husker podcast on Twitter. So for myself at the spinoff, anybody watching, listening, and of course, my fucking guest, Kevin McCaffrey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Brian.